Really excited to welcome our guest here today. He is a serial entrepreneur, an investor, and as I'm noticing in the background there, an art collector. An interesting note I do want to ask you about that is probably not so related to your business now, but a Coppersmiths Apprentice at some point in the past. So it sounds like you had some really interesting opportunities and lives in past lives. And then over the last, a big part of your career, built multiple online businesses, over 10 exceeding the $1 million level, and advised on thousands of other businesses and helping thousands of other entrepreneurs create their businesses and investing in businesses. Sold over $100 million in products and services, and worked with the likes of Tony Robbins and Richard Branson. So someone that I've followed a little bit over the years and admire in his work in business, and really excited to bring it to you today, Eben Pagan. So welcome, Eben. It's great to have you here. And for those of you who, are interested in this, Eben actually has just released a new book. I'm making sure I get that on there. Opportunity, and we'll share a link now and later actually to check this out. It's a book I'd recommend checking out in terms of taking advantage of opportunity in your life. But we will talk about that with Eben here today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Great to have you here. So I'm curious, before we go into opportunity and things like that, this Coppersmiths Apprentice thing, I saw that and I had to ask, partly because I'm I played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. I read a lot of fantasy novels. So I hear Coppersmiths Apprentice and I kind of like envision you in like robes working in the Middle Ages. And but where did that come from?
It wasn't quite that fantastic and romantic. I grew up out in Oregon. I had hippie parents. They were from New York, and they didn't want me to grow up in the city on the streets where they did. So they moved out to the backwoods of Oregon. And my first job, I found this coppersmith. It's kind of a long story, but I went over to his shop to do some work to pay for some concert tickets that a friend and I had. And as I was in there working, I said, "Hey, do you need help around here?" And he said, "Okay," and I got a job working for him. And so we made things like pots and, copper pots and pans and kitchen decorations and, ladles and spoons and things like that.
Wow. Yeah. It still sounds a little bit like some of my fantasy novels where, you find this wizard in the woods and he teaches you things and takes you into the craft.
Well, you know what? That did happen. Happen. Rex, who I worked with, and if you're seeing this, Rex, thank you very much. He was like a second dad to me, and he was a wizard. He's a brilliant man, and I learned a lot there. It was a manual labor job. It was like a hard work manual labor job, but I really learned a lot from him about life. But it was a strange thing to do. I mean, I was a Coppersmiths Apprentice for 7 years, and I was a long-haired rock and roll guitar player during that time. Yeah, it was an interesting phase. This was before I found business.
Right. So I apologize if I've had this cough for about 6 weeks now, so I'm going to do my best with the water, but I'll try and mute the mic if it strikes. That's interesting, and it kind of goes a little bit, I think, to the theme of the book of taking advantage of opportunities. And I do want to dive into that, but I also noticed, I do know that you've done a ton of, you've taken, not only built online businesses, but then gone out and trained thousands of entrepreneurs in building profitable online businesses. Your business is completely remote, right? So that creates a lot of opportunity for flexibility for you. At what point did you start getting into the training space, or where was that push into not just doing your own business, or was it right from the beginning? Because even some of it, I think your early products were about helping other people.
Yeah, I mean, the businesses that I've had that were successful, the way that happened was, in my early 20s, I got into real estate because I was, at my height, I was making $10 an hour in my manual labor job, and then I went on tour with a band. I dropped out of high school, and then I dropped out of a little local community college, went on tour with the band. At my peak, I was making $75 a week playing rock and roll guitar. And I just said, okay, I need to figure out how to make money at some point. I got to do this. And so in my early 20s, I found real estate, reasoning that people who were rich, either because I didn't know any rich people and I didn't really know people that knew people who were rich. I reasoned, okay, rich people seem to have either made money in real estate or they've invested their money in real estate. So I'm going to get a real estate license, and I'm going to go see if I can figure this thing out. And so I went and like listened to the audio tapes and got the real estate license, and that didn't work out. In my first year, I sold 1 1/3 homes, and I made way less money than working at my Coppersmith job, which I still had part-time. And so then I found sales and marketing. And ultimately, I went to work with a real estate training company named Buy Referral Only, who taught real estate agents sales and marketing. And I went to work as their audio-visual guy because I used to do music, because I just had to figure out how to learn sales and marketing. So I went to work for this company doing their audio-visual so that I could just, learn sales and marketing. And that was where I saw training happening. And I saw somebody, Joe Stump, the man I went to work with, I saw him doing it and being very successful. He had a multi-million-dollar company. He created courses. And so I did that. And then a few years later, I was working with him. I was doing pretty well. I moved to California. I bought a BMW, and I had a little apartment, used BMW, and I had a little apartment in La Jolla. And I thought, okay, I've really made it. But then I couldn't get a date. And so I thought, wait a minute, I did all the stuff here. I finally, I made the money, and I got the cool car, and now, girls won't talk to me. And so I said, okay, I got to figure this out. So I spent a few years like really taking seriously. Like I went to read books, and I went to seminars, and I made friends with guys that were really good at meeting girls. And I finally figured that thing out. I got over all my fears, and I got this amazing girlfriend. And that was when all the pieces came together. I had learned marketing, and then I had learned this dating, and I could see how people had taken information and had put it into courses. And so I wrote a book of dating advice under a pen name, and the book is called Double Your Dating. And I put it all together. I wrote this book. I built a website. I had never made websites before. I made myself a website. I put it online, and I started advertising it, and it took off. And it's a very strange thing. I'm a very unlikely dating guru, but that was how that all happened. And then a few years later, after doing that, the business became successful. People started asking me, okay, how are you doing this? You've got this business, you're running from home. You have all these employees and these team members that are all around the country and around the world. And, what are you doing? And I was showing friends of mine, and they started building successful virtual businesses too. And then I thought, okay, I should teach some courses on this. And I did a course called Altitude, which was on how to build a multi-million-dollar virtual business. And that was very successful. And then I started, several years ago, teaching people how to package up information the way that I had done it. And, I basically through my life, what I do is I find something that I want to learn, I learn it, and then I create courses and I teach other people how to do it, because I love learning new things and I love helping other people become successful. And it's kind of a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I was seeing that pattern there. That's interesting. It's sort of solve the problem for yourself, figure out how to figure that out for yourself, accumulate the knowledge, put it to use. Excuse me, and then get out there and actually teach others with it. So that first book, Double Your Dating, is that?
Yep, Double Your Dating.
Was that the first book you put out?
Yeah.
And that one, so under the pen name, is this the first? This one, is that the first one you're putting out under your name?
Yeah, this is the first. So I put out 2 books,
right?
I wrote 2 books in the Double Your Dating business, and they're both great books. And I mean, they've sold, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of them or something, very successful books. But they were always digital. Mm-hmm. And I thought that the future was digital when I wrote those books. And so I never, had print versions of it.
Yeah.
But then when I realized this idea about opportunity a couple of years ago, and then over the last year, I really worked hard writing the book. And I decided it needed to be a printed physical book to do.
Yeah.
And it's what a fun thing. It's really neat to have a book in my hands. Like, I wrote this.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And it's great. I mean, you can send them to friends in the mail, and
yeah. Totally.
And I'm really big on Kindle and Audible these days, but I still have a few bookshelves in my house dedicated to my reading obsession. And there's still something I cannot get over of like real paper and holding on to it and marking it up and highlighting it and working with it that way. And so I still love to go back to the physical books whenever I can. So on this one, and I should say, so Colin and some of the teams in the live chat there, so they'll just drop in the link for where you can get your hands on this. So you actually, for the audience here today, we have an offer for them, right?
Yep.
Is it free book?
Here's the offer. Yeah, I'll send you a copy of this book for free.
Yeah.
You just pay the shipping and handling, right? I'll send you this actual book. Plus, you get 4 bonuses that are worth $197 just for ordering it. You get to join a live class with me called The Best Opportunities of 2018 that I'm going to do soon. You get a series of videos. You get summaries and exercises. You get some surprise bonus stuff. You get discounts on some of our other courses. We're doing a launch, and I really want this to be successful. And it is so far. We've just got a ton of people that are taking advantage of this. But yeah, I'll send you a copy of this for free. You just pay the shipping and handling anywhere you want.
Excellent. Awesome. So take advantage of that. The link's getting dropped in there right now. But I want to talk now a little bit about the book and why the book. And the first question really is why this book? Why now? Why focus on opportunity right now?
I think that opportunity is it's the critical point that we all need to be paying attention to. The insight, so I've been studying and teaching entrepreneurship now for several years and investing in companies and so forth. And I had realized that entrepreneurs were good at opportunity, but a couple of years ago, it really clicked for me as I was thinking about, I've met and interviewed hundreds of self-made millionaires and billionaires and really studied what makes success. And it just clicked for me that these people were better at finding and creating opportunity. That's the common denominator of the most successful people that I know. They're better at finding it and creating it and then deciding on it, placing a bet on an opportunity. And people that aren't successful that I know, they're not as good at finding and creating opportunities. And so then I started writing down all the ideas that I had about opportunity, and I had, dozens of pages. And then I created a 1-day course and I taught it, and it went over really well. And then I just said, okay, I really need to write a book about this. And so I sat down and I spent about a year putting all of these ideas together. And this is not some thing where I just, did an interview and transcribed it. I actually physically wrote every word in this book. It's a lot of really intense work. This is the kind of thing where if you only read one book this year, read this one. It'll kind of change your life. And the reason why is because opportunity is increasing exponentially right now. Okay, so a lot of people are saying, well, what do you mean, Eben? Because I don't feel like I have more opportunity. But look at it this way. How many more options do you have in your life than you did just a few years ago? How many more options do you have to try new foods or to travel to new places or to meet new people or, very critically, to start new types of businesses or to learn new things? Just think about the options that you have to, for knowledge, between YouTube and all the courses that are online. Right. So in other words, the options and the opportunities for learning and for business, they are increasing exponentially. And with that, though, comes what I call opportunity shock. There's an overwhelm. There's just too many things for our mind to handle. We can only handle a few options. If you have one option, that doesn't feel very good in life. Right. We like to have choice.
It is easier, though.
It is a little easier, right? But that second option, when we have a second, we're like, okay, great. Now I have a choice between a few things. If we've got 3 or 4 options, great. 5, 6, 7. Once you get to 10 options, 20, 30, you start shutting down. How do you even compare them to each other? And then particularly, we're starting to have more options in different areas of our lives. We're having different social options to go hang out with people, different options to learn things, different options for business. And we have to somehow figure out how to value and evaluate these and pick out the very best ones and then place a bet for which ones are going to help us create success. And so I have created a whole system of mindsets and tools and mental models and exercises for generating more high quality opportunity and then selecting only those great opportunities that are going to lead to the most success in the long run.
So that's one thing I know I've seen so many entrepreneurs struggle with. It's one piece of advice I always give people. It's certainly something I struggled with in the early days is sort of we called it the shiny object syndrome of there is so much opportunity. And when you're starting, especially when you're starting something new, I find, you pick an opportunity or a business and you start into something new. And that first little bit, there's that beginner's luck or it's still exciting and still interesting. And then you often hit, I think it's Seth Godin talks about it as the dip, but there's that challenging part a little bit further in when everything doesn't just magically happen the way you wanted it. And at that point, I usually find for a lot of people, there's a struggle of other ideas and opportunities start popping up. I mean, they're always there, but now they really start coming front and center of maybe I should stop this thing and start this other thing. So, I mean, as part of the mental models or some other system, how do you How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the overexposure? You've got all of these opportunities, especially when you've picked one, you're diving in. And I do see some people trying to diversify and do, 15 different things at once, and others who are really good at just, let's focus on one thing for a year, 2 years, 5 years. Do you have a way of kind of, and then even as part of that, how do you determine, because sometimes it is a mistake. I have seen people focus on the same idea for 5 years and it goes nowhere. So how do you make that choice between it's time to drop this one and pick up the next one, or those are just distractions, I need to put them away, and how do I kind of avoid those distractions? I know that's huge.
You've asked about 10 great questions there.
Well, let's pick one, maybe the avoiding the distraction piece of getting bombarded by lots of other opportunities.
Yeah, I'm not saying it as a criticism. I'm saying that you've asked about 10 great questions there, but it really does get to the essence of why we have to differentiate opportunity, and we have to take opportunity and consider it as a thing. And so that when these opportunities come in life to us, that we can say, okay, this is another opportunity. Let me make a conscious decision about whether I'm going to dedicate some attention to it, or whether I'm not going, I'm going to let it go by, right? Steve Jobs said, innovation is not about just doing new things. Innovation is about saying no to 1,000 things, which I really love, right? Innovation is about saying no to 1,000 things. And the way I kind of think about for all of us in the future, as opportunity keeps increasing exponentially and options increase exponentially, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like no, 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 yes.
Yeah.
No, 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 yes. And so if you just remember that pattern, for a lot of people too, a lot of us have trouble saying no. We don't like to say no to other people. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We don't want someone to feel, rejected or turned down. And so developing the skill of saying no in a way that doesn't hurt another person's feelings, that actually helps their self-esteem go up, that's an important skill, to be able to graciously say to a person, this isn't right timing for me, but you're doing great. I can give you an example. I invest in technology companies. I've started doing this. I've invested in maybe 5 or 6 of them. Okay. I'm not one of these big venture capitalists or anything, but I've made pretty significant investments. And so far they're all successful. They're all still alive. And a few of them are doing really well. In order to find the one that I invest in maybe every year or two, which is an idea that I got from Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, one good investment a year, I have to look at lots of different options, or opportunities. And so whenever someone writes to me or calls me or reaches out to me and says, hey, Eben, I've got this thing that I'm doing, this business that I'm starting. Would you be interested in investing or advising? I try to look at all of them. I really try to take a serious look, because I know that if I look at many things, that one that I'm looking for, every year or two will really stand out.
Right.
And it turns out that they do. It really stands out. But you have to have the patience, and you have to have the kind of faith, and you have to know that it's coming. But that also means that, if I look at a couple of opportunities to invest in a month, that means that over a year, I might look at, let's say 25. I've got to say no 24 times to smart, interesting, good people. And what I've learned is that up front, what I do is I tell people how I work. I say, I try to make one investment a year. And oftentimes, I don't even make that many. It's got to be a great fit between us. And, I just want you to know that going into this, so that your expectations are set. This way, the person is already expecting that, we're just taking a look here, and that this is just like a date here. We're not getting married or anything, And so then I'll look at their business idea. And in a lot of cases, it's just outside of what I do. And I'll say, this is what you're doing is not in my area of specialty. I'll try to compliment them on things that look good. I'll say, your design looks great, or I really like your plan, or your product looks really awesome. If I can, I'll try to connect them to other people, so that the no is a no with encouragement.
Right.
And so I think those two pieces would be really good for most people to take in their mindset, that, innovation is about saying no. You're going to be saying no a lot more than yes in the future, and it's just going to keep growing, and that you can do it graciously. And
I like the gracious side for sure. Yeah.
Say again?
Interesting that you mentioned Warren Buffett there, because I think he's got a system around some of this with his 25 your top 25 things, where he says, list out your top 25 things. It's more of a to-do list as opposed to opportunity, but you could probably apply it. And then he says you separate it into two lists. You've got your top 5 and your top 20, and those, or the next 20, and those next 20 become the biggest things to say no to. So you really, and if it's not on the list, there's just no way. So it's really just about those distilling it down to the few things you actually really need to say yes to.
Yeah, I'm not as good at that as I could be. My mentor, Wyatt Woodsmall, he did a modeling project where he modeled 50 of the top entrepreneurs in England and like really dug into their psychology and so forth. And one of his favorite entrepreneurs had a saying, which was, first things first, second things not at all.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, that's getting right to the point there. That was an entrepreneur that said that.
Yeah. Yeah. So earlier you were talking about seeing this commonality between successful entrepreneurs and in recognizing opportunity and taking advantage of, I think, of the right ones. And in early, I think right at the start of the book, you have a really interesting opening of the monk, the botanist, and the lumberjack walk into a forest. Yeah. And obviously they all see a forest very differently. One's cutting it down, one's maybe meditating or seeing the miracle of life, and one's examining the science of it. Is that something, so everybody's really seeing these opportunities very differently, and you're identifying that successful entrepreneurs have an ability to identify the right opportunity. Is that something that's innate? Is that something we can learn in terms of, because with all of these opportunities, it's one thing to say no to them, but really knowing this is the one that I'm going to take advantage of. Is that a skill you can really learn to pull that piece out? And part of it, I guess, is being able to spend the time looking, as you said, at a lot of opportunities like you do, and then the one will start to stand out. Is that a personal thing where it's just going to stand out to you and not the monk or the botanist? Is it something, a skill set you can really just learn to get better at?
I believe that it is. You know, my bet is that it is. And that's why I dedicated so much time writing this book, like put my own, you know, my thought power into this, was to try to give people a tool, the best tool actually that they could have for success in business and investing and in life in the next, you know, in the coming years as we have this exponential increase. So yes, my bet is, the bet I am placing is that this is a skill that you can learn. But there are a couple of aspects, right? One is a mindset. It's the way that you look at reality. I don't know, maybe you've heard the old, you know, the kind of, I don't know, legendary parable or something about 100 years ago or a couple 100 years ago, 2 shoe salesmen from America go over to India, and they, you know, have to take a ship, and it takes, you know, weeks or months to get over there. And the telegram, so maybe it's 100 years ago, the telegram comes back from one of them that says, you know, no one wears shoes over here, no opportunity, you know, I'm coming home. And the other one sends a telegram that says, no one wears shoes here, opportunity everywhere, send reinforcements.
Right.
Right. And so that thing, that glass half empty, half full mindset is very, very important when we're talking about opportunity. And I think that you can train your mind to think like the shoe salesman who says, no one wears shoes, you know, send reinforcements here. And right. I think that you can do that, you know, with lots of tools and exercises and so forth. But then you also need to have the skills. And I think that what you need is mental models. I think you need mental models that you can use. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger talk about mental models as well, that you run through, where you can analyze opportunities, you can estimate how much they're worth, you can compare them to each other, you can make decisions and choices about the best ones. You actually need mental tools in order to do that. And that's what a lot of the second part of the book is actually about, is giving you these tool sets so that when you encounter them, the particularly hard ones, as I mentioned, is when you have an opportunity that's in one domain of your life that's very different from another domain. If you're looking at 2 investments, like let's say that you're trying to decide whether to invest in like Google stock or Facebook stock, you know, you're going to put $1,000 into an investment. You're like, okay, I'm going to compare Google to Facebook. It's relatively easy to compare these companies. You can look at them and say, well, do I like the management team? What are their numbers? Are they growing? Do I like the product? You know, do I believe in them? But what if the comparison that you have to make is between, let's say, going out to the gym today to do a workout with an hour and analyzing a stock investment for an hour.
Yeah.
How do you compare those two things? Or
Right.
spending time with your family, or learning, or going and traveling. The opportunities now, they're much more diverse. And so, the example I've been using is I've got a little daughter running around our house here. And, a while back I sat down on my computer and I was writing, and I was getting like some like the downloads about the universe. Like, okay, everything's starting to make sense. And I'm writing them down and I'm typing them in. And then all of a sudden I hear the little pitter patter of, a little 4-year-old girl who comes and grabs my hand. And it's like, Dad, come play with me.
Yeah.
Play dollies with me. And that, those are two very different opportunities when I'm in the zone and I'm really getting a plan for something. Or the really hard one, is when she shows up and it's like, Dad, I'm hungry. Sometimes I can say, you know what, honey, I'll be there in a little bit and play with you. But all right. So these are the kinds of things when you're pulled in multiple directions, because your most valuable resource, your attention, right, is finite. We only have so much attention, so much time. But we have all these different opportunities. It's when the opportunities are varied, when they're different, that's when we face the opportunity shock. And that's when we need the tools and the mental models, I think.
Right. Yeah. I can see on that. I've got a 2.5-year-old at home and a 6-week-old.
Congratulations.
So, I get the Daddy, I need to go potty now. And there's no evaluation of opportunity at that point.
Exactly. You got to put down the analysis of the Google stock.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So I'm curious then, for a lot of those, for me, I use both company and business, and then even personal and relationship core values to help make my decisions. But sometimes really even today struggle a lot with that. So that's interesting. So I want to dive more into learning about some of these mental models. I'm curious, is there a story in your life maybe earlier on where you took an opportunity that maybe would have flown under the radar? It wasn't something that hit you in the face, but that because you're looking out for it, because you're looking at things in a certain way, you recognized an opportunity and dove on it.
Yeah, I mean, the one that is a passionate one that's kind of outside the box is actually the art that you see hanging on the wall behind me. I went to the Burning Man Festival about 10 years ago with some friends for the first time. And they just, a bunch of my friends had been going and they said, you got to go. And one day I said, all right, I'm going. And so I went there. And the next year I went again because I loved it. And I did a talk and I met my wife there. She came to this talk that I did, and some, mutual people that knew us that brought us, brought her there. And so I met my wife at Burning Man. I'm like, okay, this place is awesome. And then the next year I went back. And by the way, Burning Man is a huge art and music festival. That's the central theme of it.
Right.
And I went to this art gallery that Android Jones was putting on. He's this great digital artist. And in it, he had pieces of art like this. And when I saw it, I just said, I've never seen anything like this. Like, I've never seen anything like Android Jones art. There was a ton of it. And he's this incredible digital visionary artist. And my wife and I immediately recognized, like, this is some of the coolest stuff we've ever seen. And so we started buying it. And then I started getting to know the artists. And I realized this is art that basically no one has in the mainstream world has found yet. None of these artists are in galleries. They don't have representatives. They're not, because no one's found this. Like, it's this new kind of thing. And it's the most highly detailed, precise, and it's called visionary art because they're making visions of the future and visions of like our higher selves and what we could potentially be. And I wasn't into art. I wasn't an art collector. I mean, I'm a musician, but I'm not even a very visual person. But I just saw it and I said, this is amazing. And the artists all still had all their art because basically nobody was really buying it. And so my wife and I started collecting it. We started making friends. And now, this is my wife's little, home office, and you can see we've got it here. And if you go through the other parts of our house, it's on every wall through our house because for 6 or 7 years we've been, maybe every month or something, we try to buy one of these pieces. But then you keep going. And another kind of key opportunity creation mindset that you need is to combine things that have never been combined before, put things together, connect things up. One of the things that I'm trying to communicate inside the book is that, like, a lot of people think of opportunity as being something that just happens. Like it's, in the dictionary, it's a favorable juncture of circumstances. It's this lucky coincidence.
Right.
What I'm trying to communicate is that opportunity is a creative act.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you go and you do. You go and you create opportunity for yourself. And one of the ways that you do it is you connect things up that hadn't been connected before. And so as I was writing this book, originally I was just going to like make opportunity on the cover in big letters and say, okay, that's going to be the cover. And then I was thinking, no, what could I do to make this thing really distinctive? And then I thought, well, maybe I'll reach out and I'll talk to Android Jones, that artist that I mentioned to you, who I had met back at Burning Man, who we started collecting his art. And I reached out to him. He's become a friend. And I said, hey, do you want to help me maybe work on this cover? And we talked about it and we got on. And I told him about the book. And I had one idea. And then he started making drawings. And then sure enough, he came up with the idea for opportunity of the hand holding the lightning bolt. And he designed this image that then became the cover of this book. And I love it because it captures the spirit of opportunity. It's something you kind of have to reach up and you have to grab the lightning. But it's also a little bit, it can be dangerous because you can be sucked in. You can be pulled in by a huckster, or you can get involved in an opportunity that can cost you a lot of time or money. And so it really, it captured the spirit. And I loved it because it was combining things that really hadn't been put together before. And that's a place, I guess, with finding this art and then taking it and then integrating it with what I'm doing, where I feel like I've really created opportunity for myself.
Excellent. And it's funny you mentioned it. I think last week or the week before, a couple of the women here were picking up their, fourth year running Burning Man tickets. And I haven't been myself, but have been very tempted, and I'm sure I'll get there one day. But when I saw the cover, and it was vaguely reminiscent of some of the art I've seen at Burning Man, even in terms of some of the structures and the statues, and you got kind of the staircases and people. So that's, I don't know if that came out of it, but it was actually kind of a feeling I almost got just looking at it the first time I saw it. It could be that Burning Man's also was top of mind because we were just talking about it here.
Well, it is. It's kind of it's hitting everyone's consciousness. I don't know if you know this, but the Smithsonian just has the Art of Burning Man. They just opened in Washington, D.C. It's the first time actually this art is getting, wow, like legit mainstream kind of attention. And they've got a huge display with sculptures and a bunch of Android Jones art and things. So if you happen to be in D.C., go check it out. I'm going to try to go.
People are starting to wear shoes now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're starting to wear the shoes. Yeah.
Very cool. Another thing you talk about is collaborating with others. And I think this is like you talk about there, you've got ideas coming together, which I think is amazing for creating opportunity. And I love the idea. You're not just sitting around waiting for it to come and knock on your door. You're actually getting out and combining ideas, combining things together. But you also talk about collaborating with people, which is another form of, bringing things together, and how you can use that to kind of multiply your opportunity. Any great ways right now that you see as great ways of collaborating, or ways that people are watching, especially people who are in the training and course space, because a lot of our audience here is into educating others, where collaboration can help them in creating those opportunities?
Yeah, collaboration is a big idea. I've been paying a lot of attention to it the last few years. My wife and I have been doing a lot of work around collaboration. And so I guess we would have to almost define collaboration. And to me, collaboration isn't just when two people or three people or a group of people are doing something together. Mm-hmm. Collaboration is when you're putting diverse skills together, very different people who have different skills, and you're getting a 1 + 1 is 3 or a 1 + 1 is 11. You're getting a multiplication, right? You're getting a multiplier effect. Adam Smith, he wrote about the idea of the pin factory, where, and this was, a couple hundred years ago, where if you have one person that worked in a pin factory that was drawing the wire to make pins, mm-hmm. and then cutting it and then sharpening them and then putting the little heads of the pins on and whatever, that one person working alone could only make a little handful of pins in a day.
Right.
But if you get like 10 people working together and they all differentiate and they do very different things, one draws the wire and one cuts it and one puts the heads on and whatever, that they could make, like 10,000 pins in a day. It's this like 100x kind of multiplication. Right. That's the kind of collaboration that I'm talking about. And I think that the key to collaboration is to realize that you have to go and find people who are very different from you, who have very different skills and talents and abilities, and then figure out how to synchronize those two things together like two wings on one bird so that you can then fly.
Right.
So if let's use a
That's pretty counterintuitive. I mean, because we go to conferences with like-minded people. We hang out with friends who are like-minded people. We tend to reach out to people who are in a similar space. So it's you almost have to break down some of your, I guess, social norms to go out and find the people that, not that we don't interact with some people who are quite different, but yeah, there's a little bit of our normal flow. I think you have to break down, especially in business, to go and really interact with people who have a radically different skill set than you.
Yeah, for sure. You know, in the book, one of the things that I talk about is the idea of finding niche or fringe subcultures where they're working on something new. And so, for example, you know, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, they were members of this thing called the Homebrew Computer Club, which was a bunch of geeks getting together who like to build computers and program software. They were in love with this, you know, this thing called the computer and like making it, do things, taking operations in their mind and programming them in. And then that turned into, they started making their own computers, and other people at the club said, hey, will you make one for me? And then they made printed circuit boards, and it kind of came out of this niche subculture. I love to go out and find groups of people that are working on new stuff and go to the seminar or go to the industry event, or, Burning Man, it's a niche, it's a fringe subculture. It is a group of people that are experimenting with different ways of life. I went to the Singularity Summit maybe 15 years ago when they first started doing those in San Francisco, which is a bunch of, computer programmers and artificial intelligence and robotics super geeks all talking about computers waking up and having consciousness. And I remember going to the first one of those, as I recall, I think it was in San Jose. And I mean, there was nobody from my world in there. There was nobody that was writing dating advice and doing information products there. But I made friends there, and I went back for several years, and I have many friends now from that whole world, and now even business ventures with people from that universe. And I could keep going on. I mean, the last year, somebody invited me to a blockchain and cryptocurrency conference, and I went in there and I said, oh my gosh, these people are trying to change the world. I mean, this is not just about creating a new money. These people are trying to start a global revolution. And when I started learning about the different values they have and what the blockchain is, I said, oh my gosh. So I dove in and I've learned a lot about that, did some investing there. And I mean, it's still, anybody's guess what's going to happen. I mean, it's very high risk. It could crash and go to zero. It's still basically gambling. But I've learned that there's something there. There really is something to the blockchain. It is a miraculous piece of technology. But even more interestingly, it's attracting a group of people that have created this fringe subculture. It's a subculture of people that has a value set, a way of thinking about reality. And I think we all need to go learn about that one. And visionary art. And, I could go on and on, but it hasn't, most of the opportunity in my life has not come because I kept going to the same conference on internet marketing over and over or whatever. It's come from going to totally different places and traveling to different parts of the world. You got to get outside your comfort zone and go see some new things that you wouldn't normally go check out.
Yeah, that's something I gotta get back into. I've been to about 40 different countries in my life, but most of that, I haven't added too many to that list in the last 5 years. So probably have to break outside my comfort zone. So that's interesting. So you're putting yourself in the situation where you're being exposed to this. Is that enough to be exposed to these quite different ideas and different people? Or is there a moment, like when you meet someone, say at a blockchain conference, is that, wow, you've got different ideas, let's find some opportunity? Or is it, I mean, it's a little bit of a nebulous concept, I guess, but is there a way to kind of improve your odds there of being in those places, meeting those people? And what's that next step? Is it saying, let's just continue talking and see what comes of it? And then I guess a little bit of balancing that with what you said before of, you look at dozens of or hundreds of investments and then the one jumps out at you.
Yeah.
When you're putting yourselves in these situations, where is that distillation down to like, all right, we've got an opportunity. You got a totally different skill set here.
One of the things that I recommend is that each of us starts a passion project around once a year. It's a great thing to do at the beginning of a year.
Yeah.
Just start a new project around some new diverse area of life, not a passion project that's just like what you're doing, but a passion project doing something that's totally new something that's in a new domain where you haven't been working before. And
Okay.
if you've been doing a bunch of stuff in business, start a passion project around social relationships or with your family or something physically, like in physical health, right? If you're in great physical health and that's your thing, go start a passion project around learning, or a passion project around teaching, or maybe making a contribution or a philanthropic project. But start a passion project about once a year in a new area, somewhere completely not like everything else that you've done, and get together with a group of people who are also passionate about that thing, and see if you can do something, see if you can create something where you can work together, and see if you can get something started. And then from there, if it gets traction, then ask, could this be a business, right? Could this just be a hobby?
Yep.
Maybe this becomes a philanthropy. But do a passion project around something that you're really interested in that's new and different. Then you kind of guarantee that it's got built-in stick-to-itiveness to it.
Right.
Too many people, they pick, they say, okay, yeah, I'm going to get involved in this opportunity, but they don't really ask themselves, is this something that I am passionate about, that this is going to keep me going for years, that I could be interested in for years?
That was the first couple of businesses I got into.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up poor and I got involved in things. When I got into selling real estate, I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't interested in selling real estate at all. I just wanted to learn how to make money. And it didn't last that long. It didn't really go anywhere. It didn't turn into anything. I've gotten into other things, like, for example, the art. I am so passionate about it and I'm so interested in the artists and I love it so much. At some point, this probably turns into some kind of business thing. I've been trying to teach a lot of these artists how to do business and teach them more entrepreneurship. And I mean, I've now got so much of this that it's starting to, I don't have any, place to put it. And I'll bet you that it turns into some type of business at some point in my life. That's what you want to do. You want to get into things that you're so interested in and so passionate about. Then you see, is there a business idea? Or then maybe there's a philanthropic idea, or then it just becomes a hobby. But they're things that keep you going, that you're engaged in, that you grow through into the long term. And they make if every passion project, if you did one a year and they're diverse, and some of them are physical, some of them are social, some of them are emotional, some of them are success, some of them are learning, some of them are purpose, some of them are contribution, that's when you kind of make a garden of life that's really interesting to live in.
Right. Excellent. That's a great way to start it, because you're right. I've been sucked into those opportunities before where it sounds like a great opportunity, but then, a month in, a year in, you realize you're not passionate about it. And sometimes you get caught up in that moment. So I love that idea of starting from the passion first and then determining if that's something you should actually be investing the effort in. What mine this year so far is food gastronomy. So molecular gastronomy for food. So making some really cool things around cooking.
Awesome.
Probably not a business in it for me, or even much collaboration, because my wife doesn't love to cook. But actually with my daughter, there's a little bit of fun there. She likes getting in the kitchen with daddy. So that's mine, which has been super fun right now. Awesome. That's great. Well, I want to remind everyone, I think it is a great opportunity for everyone to grab a copy of this book. Eben's been kind enough to put free copies out there, so it's just shipping and handling to get this to you. But there's a link below here, so hop in there, grab a copy of Opportunity. And as Eben's saying, if there's one book you're going to read this year, I would suggest checking this one out based on everything we've talked about and everything I've seen. It really can make a big difference in your life, not just in the business space. I know we've talked a lot about the business space, but also in personal and health and other areas. So definitely recommend checking this out. And again, Eben's kind enough to drop not only the book, but a bunch of other free bonuses and training in there. So check that out and take advantage of the opportunity to learn some of this stuff from Eben. Anything else you want to suggest or add or share with the audience that I've missed or not covered or?
No, that's it. Just read this book. One read through the book, it'll change how you see reality. You'll actually see opportunities more. You'll be better at choosing them. You'll be better at attracting them, and you'll be much better at creating them, like literally be more creative in your life. You'll be able to create the life that you want, which is what I really wish for everyone.
Awesome. Me as well. So so take advantage of this opportunity. Don't let this one pass you by.